Okay, now we are going to create an application that simulates or it is our own implementation of push notifications, right? You have an Android application receiving messages and showing notifications when a new message arrives. Well, you do that using third-party tools or tools provided by Google, but in this case, we are going to combine the power of Node.js, Socket.io, and Android to do that. This is going to be completely free. You only need to have a server running anywhere, and Node.js, Socket.io, everything is free. So we start with this Android application here. I did this project before in another tutorial I have, so check my channel. You will see how I build this Socket application using Node.js and Socket.io. We're going to start with the basic application here in Android. We're using Android Studio, nothing different from what you I'm sure you have in your computer right now. I'm going to tell you what is going on the screen. We are going to see my phone here, how the application runs, and then we're going to see a little bit of the code on the server side, and check the description here because I'm going to leave you the access to this code in GitHub, so you will be able to download. You have to change some stuff there according to my previous tutorial on Node.js, and you will have to change. I think that's pretty much is certificates and the server and port you're going to. That's the only thing you will have to change. Certificates files, you will see that from my previous video, and then you will need to change the server where to connect to and the port. Well, here I start creating an empty application, right? Use the default values. This is taking a little bit because it's kind of slow. Let's finish here. Just a second. That's it. Now Visual Studio now is creating all the files we need, synchronizing Gradle. Our code is there. We're going to build the only screen we are going to have in our application. This screen is going to have a username and a channel, right? We're going to connect to our server using a channel name and a username. We're going to use a linear layout. Yeah, I know. This is completely basic. So you see here that it's nothing complicated, just basic layout, beginning of times. Inside, we're going to put two things. First, the username. This is a text box for asking the username you want to use for connecting to the socket, right? The default value for username is going to be device, right? Let's wait a little bit for Android to finish loading. In a minute I will have my zoom here restored. That's it. Let's zoom in and see the fields I'm asking. First is going to be our username, which is device, right, for this example. This is the username we're going to use for connecting to our server, remember. And the channel is going to be Android, right? In uppercase. Okay, remember, this is private information. You don't have to use this to your users. You just pick a unique ID as a username. It may be it's the internal device ID of your phone, or you can go and ask for an ID to your server. Do whatever you want to get the unique username. And the channel is important because it depends on what channel you're connected to. In this case, that's the username, but the channel is Android. That channel is going to allow us to receive certain information. If you're connected to a channel, you will receive all the messages in that channel only. And finally, our button connect, right? With this button, we're going to connect to our socket in our server using Node.js, Socket.io, and from the example we did before. Check my channel and you will get the code. Okay, we have our layout. It's very simple. Remember, this is private. This is for you. You don't have to use this, show this to your users. We have our main activity. The first thing we are going to do is to get this information, our username and channel. We can do it this. I will start by getting the context because I'm going to use this later. Yeah, so we have here text view is going to be the username and the channel. We include this, import this. Remember, these two fields we are going to get, right, from our layout. So we come here in the onCreate method and we grab the reference from the activity. Yeah, I know. You can do this. As you want. I'm just doing this as a basic normal way so everyone can understand this. Okay, and now what is left is our button to connect to the server, right? So we're going to add a listener. So when we click, you can do this obviously in a simpler way. Just define it from your layout, the click function. I prefer to do this way because I don't know, I feel it's more organized, but anyway, it's the same. So when the user clicks this button connect, we're going to call a method connect to socket, right? We have to define this method. We're going to do this right now here. That's it. So the first thing we are going to do is to get the information we have in this text boxes. I think you get the idea, right? It's very simple. We have to check if these values are not empty, right? Any other validation in the future that you consider good. If we have empty values, we are going to toast a message here. So that's why we have the context. Okay, we're going to show this for some period of time, and then we're going to show. Let's grab this to the next line. Okay, but now, once we have the information, now we need a socket class. We have, where do we connect to? Okay, we're going to create a socket class to connect to. To do that, we go here to our package, we select new class, and we name it socket class. So pay attention to this. We're going to need some functions here from Socket.io, right? This is not included in your Android, so you need to import this. You need to bring this from other place. That's why you have to use Gradle in this case, right? So you click here in your Gradle settings and you choose the module Gradle file. Don't choose the project, use the module. Double click there and go to dependencies. You have to implement a new dependency right there where you see on the rest of your dependencies. It doesn't matter where, you just write this line here, implementation of this package we want, io.socket.io client, right? It's the same client we use for JavaScript. In this case, it's going to be for Android. This class includes JSON manipulation functions. We don't want them because Android already has those functions and we're going to have an error. So we're going to specify that we want to exclude or .json, right? From the group, from the module JSON. That's what we have to do. You just copy the same thing you see here. And once you sync, click there. Gradle is going to work a little bit, will include all the functions they need. And if everything goes well, you are going to see no errors there. If you have an error, it's because you don't have internet, you wrote something different from what I see here, or maybe you have to check versions, but you shouldn't have any troubles with versioning. Now we are good to write the socket class. This is very important. This is going to be a singleton. Singleton is a class you can create only one instance of that class. Why one instance? Well, because we want to have only one socket connection, right? Because if we just start creating instances of this class, we're going to have maybe different connections to the server and everything is going to be a mess. So we're going to make sure that only one instance of this class is available for the entire application. To do that, you create a static value and you create, well, this is the variable that it will hold a reference to this class, a static reference, and this is the object, right? This is the object socket. This socket object is going to contain all the functions we need to connect to the socket, receive messages, and send messages to. Okay, now we were going to create we're going to define the URL and the port we are going to connect to. This is going to be my server here and my port, but check the example I have about Node.js and Socket.io on the port, and you will see how to create your own. So you have to start the server in your own server, right? And use the port you want. So this is my server, you have to change this. It won't work because that server is just for testing for this video. Okay, what else we need? We need the commands we are going to send and receive from the server. You know, we are talking to the server using some commands. These commands are, for instance, update chat. You have to write like you see here. It's case sensitive, so you have to check for uppercases and everything. The same way you have here, you have to write it in your server side. This command, update chat, is for receiving new messages. So every time we receive this command, we know that a new message arrives. And that's our push message, right? This next command, add user to, is going to be the command we send to the server to say, hey, look, add this user to this channel. We're going to send the username and the channel. So the server will have to include this user to that channel so he can start talking, receiving and sending messages. In this case, for this example, we are going to only receive messages which are the push notifications. The last command we are going to use is send chat. This is for sending messages to the server. For this example, we are not going to use this, but I leave you here this, so you will figure out how to use it for your own purpose, right? Now we have the commands, we have the port and the URL. Now we have to define a private constructor because we don't want anyone to access this constructor, right? We want all the rest of the project to access this class using this method, get instance. So you call this method, which is a static, you call this method every time you want to use this class. We check here if there is an empty instance of this class. Well, we create it right here and we return this. Okay, at this point, our singleton is ready, right? This is all we need for declaration of variables and singleton. This is our socket class manager. Now we are going to create an interface. What is this interface for? It's for communicating what is going on here with our socket to the rest of the classes. We're going to inform when a socket is already connected, when a new message arrives, when the socket is disconnected. So we're going to use an interface. That's what we use interfaces for, right? Yes, you can define this interface outside this class. There's no problem, just it's more organized. For this simple example, I don't want to make it too long. Right? We have this method here in this interface that will be called when a new message arrives. So we are going to inform anyone who is using socket class. We're going to inform that a new message arrives using this function. We are going to define another function too, which is when the socket gets disconnected, right? We need to, everyone who is using this socket class will need to know when the socket is disconnected or when it's connected, right? Or even when you have an error, for instance, on error. Every time we want to inform an error, we are using this interface and we are using this method on error and we're going to pass the message. So the rest of the classes are going to inform users or do whatever you have to do, right? If it's disconnected, maybe you want to try to check if the user has internet connection, or start any kind of process that checks for internet when it's available again, or etc. You can do whatever you want. We are going to define a method for connecting to our socket. So what we're going to need is a reference to this interface we just created. We're going to add a try catch to this process because we have some input output operations here, and if one of those fails, we need to inform, right? For instance, here in the catch expression, we are going to first print the stack trace, and then if this listener is available, but because maybe we need to check for new, right? Because sometimes users don't pass any reference to the listener. So if it's not null, we're going to fire this, we're going to trigger this interface function on error, and we're going to pass the error. Okay, and the try, we're going to create first some options for our socket, right? We use this. As an option, we are going to say, okay, create a new socket. Don't use an existing one. That's why we also need this to be a singleton, because we are forcing to create a new socket, so we can now create multiple instances of this class. Well, there a new keyword is missing. And the other option we're going to add is that if we want to reconnect in case of disconnection, that's a job these classes are going to do for us. Okay, now we create the object, then we pass the server URL on port, right? Remember, this is yours. And we also pass as parameters the options we just created. Remember, server URL on port, you cannot use this. You can use your own. Okay, now this is the interesting part. We're going to start receiving events, right? The first one we're going to receive is event connect. This is internal from Socket.io, right? Every time this event is coming, event connect, we know that the socket is connected, so we can set a flag and do whatever we want, right? This is the moment we can add users to a channel once the socket is connected. Don't try to add a user to a channel before the socket is connected, right? Because it won't work. Another event we are going to receive is update chat, right? Remember, this is the command we receive from the server every time a new message arrives. This is going to be our push message, right? We're going to put some comments here, so when I upload this to GitHub, you will receive these comments too. So you know that every time the process enters this method, a new push message is received. Again, if we have our listener defined, right, we can inform back to our caller, hey, we have a new message, and we're going to pass that message, right? That's it for now. And then the last event we need is when the socket gets disconnected. You will find there some others events you can do. You can check them out and use them as you please. Okay, we are disconnected here. Maybe you want to inform users or try to do something about it. And until you have a new connection, maybe you need to inform via email or check if you have internet or something. So the only thing we do here is we receive this command and we inform using our listener. That we don't do any code here. We just inform back to who is using us, right? Most important one is the new message, because this new message is the socket, is the push message. Last thing we have to do is to invoke this method connect, so you do the thing. Okay, we have everything here. Yes. There's nothing missing? No. Okay. Now we need to create some other methods here. For instance, add user to channel. Add user to channel is what I just told you. Once you're connected, you will want to add a user to a channel because you want to start receiving information from the server, right? If you don't add this user to the channel, you won't get anything. Or if you subscribe or add this user to a channel which no one is using, obviously you're not going to receive any messages. How do we do this? Okay, we have to send or emit commands to the server. In this case, we're going to emit to the server the command add user to, right? The server is expecting this command. So if you see the server's source code, you will see that we define there this add user to as part of the information we need from the server side to add users to channels. And we pass as a parameter username and a pipe and then the channel, so we can split the string because of the pipe and get the first or the second member of the array. We can send chat also. As I said before, I leave you here this command send chat and the chance to send messages to the server. This is not the idea. I mean, the idea is only receive push notification, but we can also inform back to the server. That's obviously perfectly fine and is really good to do that. So you have an open channel to your server, right? And you won't spend any money if you have to pay for transactions between server and clients, right? If you have to pay for those transactions, so use a socket, because a socket will save you a lot of money. Okay, this is it for our socket class. That's all we have. Now we need to create a service. What is this service about? This service is going to be listening all the time for new socket messages. Remember, you cannot kill your application, because if you kill your application, So you won't receive any messages. So the idea is to have your applications always running in the background. So that's why you use a service for. You have to take care, you have to pay a lot of attention when you make a service, because a service it's always running, and it uses your device's batteries. And if you do heavy load, processes really heavy or too much work on the background, you will have a slow device working there. You will have always a low memory, and you will have a lot of battery consumption. So users will uninstall your application if you mess around with the services. So take care here. Okay, we define our service here. We extend from services, and the command that makes everything is on start command. On start command is the first one, the first method Android will call when you start your service, right? So we do here our socket work. I'm going to create a comment here when I start, and this is a comment when I end my socket work here. And finally, we have to return what? We need to return to Android and say, okay, start in a sticky way. So stay always as alive as possible, right? Java has something really good, but it's not that good for our purposes, which is a garbage collector, right? The garbage collection checks all the classes, objects out there doing nothing, or classes which are ready to clean from memory. I'm sure if you know Java, you will know about garbage collection. And this garbage collection will remove our service from memory. So we need to be aware of that we're going to be destroyed if we just stay in the background doing nothing. If we just wait for something, the garbage collection will say, okay, this guy is doing nothing, so I will remove it. To avoid that, we're going to create here, we're going to override the onDestroy method of this service. This onDestroy method is going to be executed by Android when the garbage collection calls us, telling, you're good for nothing now, I'm going to destroy you. Okay, so Android will come here and will run this method onDestroy. And at this point, when Android is destroying us, we're going to create ourselves again. I'm going to add a comment here so you know what I'm doing. But basically, this is what we do to prevent garbage collection to remove us from memory. We create again, right? So every time someone is trying to destroy us, before we leave, we are going to create again ourselves, right? Okay, now once we know we are going to be alive forever, we can use the socket class singleton and pass this listener, which is our interface, right? We're going to call our method connect. We just created, remember? Okay, and we have this method from our interface. Every time we enter here is because the socket is telling us, hey, you have a new message. So we can do whatever we want here. In our case, we are going to show this message, right? Because that's the whole idea. Okay, we get the string. Here in this variable message, we have our text. We can print it for debug, right? This is our push message from the server. And here are the methods that are going to be executed every time the socket gets disconnected. In our case, we're going to do nothing, just show the message. This is just an example. And well, when we are connected to the socket, we're going to do nothing more than show a message in the log. We don't need to do anything else. And if there is an error, yeah, we're going to show that error, but as we know the socket is going to self-connect, we don't care about errors that much. We're printing twice here the stack trace, but well, later I will leave one of 2 times and print the stack trace. The final thing we need to do here is, once we receive the message, is to show it. To show the message, we're going to use Android notifications. We're going to create a utility class. I used to create utility classes when I want to do some stuff in general. In this case, it's an Android notification in the taskbar, where all notifications appear. We need 3 parameters. We need the context, we need a title, and we need the text we're going to show to users. Just like when you receive a WhatsApp, you can be as creative as you want here. Android has a lot of things to do with notification. It's an entire world, It's really good what you can do there. We're going to keep it simple and just show a message, the title and a message. That's it. And every time the user clicks on it, it will open the main activity we have here in our project. So our result intent is going to be our main activity class. You have to define here which class you want to show every time the user clicks on the notification. In our case, it's going to be our only activity, which is the main activity. And the resulting then, which is main activity, and this is flag update current. Is we're telling Android what do we want to do with this main activity. We want to create new one, update the current one. What do we want to do every time you have to do this? Every time a user clicks on the activity, you want to create a new one. That's it. No, we want to just update the current one. Don't create anything new. Notifications, they use a builder. We define a title, we define an icon. You can show there the icon you want. I'm just using the icon from this application, but you can be as creative as you want. And finally, the text you want to show in the notification, right? As I write here, we use the builder, set auto cancel to true. If we want to cancel the notification as soon as the user clicks on it. Otherwise, we're going to cancel this notification manually, right? We're going to do some vibration too, because we want to let the user know that a new message has arrived. Right? This arrive of long is just the way we want to make the vibration, right? It's like a musical composition here, but with vibration. Just copy there. If you don't know much about vibrations, just copy this. It's going to be the default vibration. All the applications do, right? We can also, if the device supports visual information using a LED, you can turn this LED on, the red LED on, and if the device doesn't have any lights to show, well, it won't do nothing. Oh, we also can add some sound, obviously. We want to vibrate and also play some sound. We're going to use the default notification sound, the same everyone is using, all the applications are using. Well, we also need to define an ID for this notification because everything must be unique in the Android world. So we create this one, our ID. And now we're going to show it live, but to do that, we need to get an instance of the notification manager. Notification manager is the one in charge for showing the notifications for the entire device, for the entire system, right? He handles when and how you have to show them. No, I mean, when the notification must be shown, or if it must be shown, if it's a risk or something. So that all that is done by the notification manager. We pass the builder, which is there. Okay. And that's pretty much everything. It's kind of long, but it's nice when you see it working. Once we have this, we need to start defining. Remember, we are accessing a lot of things. We are going to the internet, we're vibration, so we need to ask for permissions, right? The first permission we need to ask for is internet, right? Because we are accessing the internet. We are trying to make the device vibrate, so we need to ask for permission for vibration. And one of the most important permissions we need to ask for is a permission for receivers, right? I don't know if you already worked with receivers before, but we are going to tell Android, hey, Android, listen, we want you to run us as soon as the device starts or boots, right? Because we have a service living in the background forever, right? Listening for new push notifications, but we also need to be active again once the phone boots up, right? So that's why we create a receiver. To do that, we define receiver and we tell Android the name of our receiver. This receiver, we have a name, obviously is the name of the class. So we have to create this class. The name is AutoStart, right? We create a class which must be extended. Oh, so now I need to extend first. Broadcast receiver. Now we can implement the methods from that class. And this method is going to be executed by Android automatically once the phone, for instance, boots up, right? So we turn off the device, Android starts again, and he goes to the list where all the applications are there in that list to be executed automatically. We are going to be one of them. So besides defining the name of the receiver, we need to define some filters which tells Android, hey, I want you to execute this receiver every time, for instance, look the list. It's really long, so you can be informed of everything. In our case, it's when the boot is completed, we're going to ask Android when there is a change in the connectivity. For instance, we don't have a network connection, so just tell us, hey, there's a problem here. I'm going to move this up. I'm going to put this inside the receiver. That's it. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And the third one we want to be aware of is when the user is present or not. Right? So you can define this receiver for all the stuff you want to know. Android will put you in a list and he will inform you every time that thing happens. Other receivers you have are, for instance, a new file is added to the system, or, well, you have a lot of uses for this receiver. It's enormous, it's incredible what you can do. Okay, now we have our receiver defined, so every time the device boots up, we will start our activity. Here we define our service. In this case, Android did it, right? Android helped us to define this service. It's okay. We're all set, I guess. Let me check a little bit here. The only thing missing is an app. Android name. I don't know if you know about this, but you can define an application class. We need this application class, which extends from application, because we need to have it there when the system first when our application starts, we have a reference of the entire application here, and we are going to use this one to start the service, because we know that this is going to be executed only one time, right? We make sure that only one time is going to pass. It's going to enter here. That's why we use an app class. Start the service, and that's it. That's all we need from here. But we have to define this here. Otherwise, this app class is never going to be invoked, right? Let me check a little bit. Everything is okay. Let me see if it compiles here on my phone. We're going to make a pause here and see you in the second part of this video.